She knocks just after I've finished my 6th coffee of the morning. I hug her tighter than anyone I've ever hugged in my life. For a moment, with her body pressed against mine, I feel sane. I almost convinced myself that everything that has happened over the past 24 hours was just one long fever dream. Yet as she kisses me and I close my eyes, an overwhelming tiredness washes through my skull. And beneath that wave of exhaustion, I hear something. I hear a distinct beep.
You taste like an ashtray.
She says, with the world's slightest grin.
And you look like shit.
I haven't slept since Friday morning, I tell her.
Why?
She asks. I search for words. I search for some sort of explanation, but the facts of my situation struggle to stick together in my sleep-deprived brain. Want a coffee? I ask.
Sure.
She says, and then lies down on the couch. As she walks past me, the smell of her conditioner reminds me of the first night. I remember how she teased me about being an American, how she busted my balls for being another foreigner teaching English in Prague, how her hair smelled as she fell asleep in my arms. I remember how soft her bed was. I brew her a cup of coffee. As the machine grinds away at the beans, I can't help but watch her tap away at her phone. There's nothing I want more than to lie down next to her and rest my head on her breasts. The land of sleep beckons me from her bosom, but I resist. I know I have to resist. I make myself 4 espressos in a single mug. When I sit down next to her, she throws her long legs on my lap and starts cheerily chirping away about something. Her accent never gave me trouble over the past couple of months, but the tension behind my eyeballs makes it impossible to understand a word she is saying.
Hey.
She nudges me with her foot.
You okay there, big guy?
I try to reply, but it feels like a lethargic worm has replaced my tongue. I take a long, scalding gulp of my coffee. My tongue still feels foreign, but the burning pain that travels down my throat gives me some semblance of control over my words. Remember Teddy? I asked her.
Yeah.
She says.
Your missing skeleton boy roommate, right?
I almost tell her not to call him that, but I don't. Petra's tendency for cruelty is the last thing on my mind right now. Yeah, I say. His parents held a memorial service back in Baltimore yesterday. No one is searching for him anymore.
Oh.
She says, her fiery eyes growing dim with empathy.
Sorry, I didn't mean to call him Skeleton Boy. How are you doing?
The door to Teddy's room is still open. Past the VHS tapes on the floor, I see his bulky television. I found him, I say.
What?
She asks, sitting up. His dad invited me to speak at the service, even offered to pay for the airfare. But I don't know. It just didn't feel right. I barely knew Teddy. I mean, we lived together and the kid was chill, but the only thing I really knew about him was that he collected VHS tapes. Didn't feel right to speak in front of his grieving family. But I figured that, I don't know, if the guy's gone, if the guy's dead, I should at least pay him a little bit of respect to his memory. I never asked him about his collection because I didn't care, but I figured he'd like it if I made an effort. So I watched one of his tapes.
That's sweet.
She says, leaning over and wrapping her arms around me.
That's really sweet.
Those grime-filled eyes, that filthy hair, the screaming. Sweet is the last descriptor that I would use for what I found inside Teddy's VCR. Petra's hug eases those images out of my mind, but her embrace is far too comforting. It's too soft. I feel my eyes closing. I hear that infernal beep echo through the core of my being. I shrug her off. I wanted to watch like a Friends episode or something, I tell her. But when I turned on the TV, there was already a tape inside of it. Professor Egghead's Adventures.
Never heard of it.
She says. Petra leans back on the couch and gives up on the embrace. Yet she continues to caress me with her foot. On any other day, I'd welcome her advances. But I know I have to save my energy. I know I have to stay awake if I'm going to stay away from him. It's not a show, I say. The tape I found inside of Teddy's VCR is not a sitcom like the rest of his collection. It's... I search for words. The only thing that comes to mind is the word abomination. But I doubt she knows that word. I doubt she'd understand. It's really bad, I finally say. I watch the tape and there's this man, or creature, or monster. I don't know what to call him. He's a man shaped like an egg with horrible, horrible eyes. Professor Egghead. He calls himself Professor Egghead, and he just screams. He screams about science. He screams about demanding attention. He screams and he hurts people.
That's why you haven't slept for a day, because you are scared of this Professor Egghead that you saw on the television.
With every word that leaves her lips, I can feel her pulling away from me. She came here because she thought I was having a bad day and needed company, but now she thinks I'm fundamentally broken. I don't blame her. The visage of Professor Egghead has shattered my life. He's not just on the television, I say, trying to explain my terror. I mean, yes, he's on the television, but he exists somewhere else. Professor Egghead exists somewhere beyond the scope of... Look, I found Teddy. Professor Egghead trapped Teddy in the television, and now Professor Egghead is trying to trap me. Petra raises one perfect eyebrow in confusion. I swear I'm not lying. On the tape, Professor Egghead went to a fast food restaurant and Teddy was behind the register. I swear to God it was him. That's why no one could find Teddy when he went missing. It's because he somehow got trapped inside of the television. Somehow Professor Egghead got to him and now he's after me. There's this scene. At the end of the tape, there's a scene where Professor Egghead goes shopping and there's no one behind the cash register. He wants me there. He looked at me from the screen and demanded that I get behind the cash register and serve him. He wants to trap me inside of the television just like he trapped Teddy. I hope that telling her would lessen the burden on my tired shoulders, but it doesn't. Petra stares at me like I just escaped a mental institution. For a moment, I feel like she'll just give up and leave, like she'll abandon me with the horrible reality I've been thrust into. But then she smiles.
Any drugs in the house?
I swear to God, I'm not on drugs. It's all real. Please, Petra. I need you to believe me.
You Americans with your swear to gods.
She sighs.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if there's any drugs in your house.
There's some weed on my desk, I think.
Good boy.
She says as she gets up and strolls over to my room. I watch her as she leaves, hoping that some primal part of my brain will find distraction in her figure. But I don't. The only body that I can think of is the misshapen mass of Professor Egghead.
Come here!
Petra yells from the bedroom. By the time I drag myself over, the pipe is already back on the bedstand and thin wisps of smoke hang around Petra's head. Sprawled out on my soft bed, the morning light caresses her legs. She nudges the side of the mattress with her foot, calling me to sit. My drained body obliges.
So, there is a man made of eggs in the television who kidnapped your old roommate, and now he's going to kidnap you.
She says.
Do I understand correctly?
He's not actually made of eggs. He's like one big egg with a human face and a lab coat, I try to explain. But her face leaves little room for nuance. Yes, I say. That's pretty much it.
And you can't go to sleep, why?
The word sleep sounds like an invitation from her lips. It echoes through my mind. Sleep, sleep, sleep is all I need. My eyes feel heavy. For a moment they close, and then beep. If I go to sleep, he'll get me. When he was in the supermarket, when I watched the television, I can't explain it, Petra. It's like he reached out for me. It's like I was there. I could feel him looking at me. I could see the fluorescent lighting of the supermarket. I could hear the beeping of the checkout machines. I turned off the television and got away. But now, whenever I go to sleep, I can feel him reaching out. When I close my eyes, I can hear the beeping of the checkout machines. Her face wavers between laughter and concern, but she finally just shakes her head and smiles.
So what, you are just never going to sleep again?
The thought has crossed my mind before. The thought of it all eventually ending. Of me falling asleep. I don't allow myself to go down the hopeless rabbit hole again. I called Teddy's father as soon as I saw his son on the television. He's flying over to check out the tape. I hope that if he watches it, somehow this will all end. I hope that this can all end. Petra stares at me in disbelief.
You called your missing roommate's father on the day of his son's memorial. Are you sick?
Petra, I swear this is all real. I know this sounds crazy, and I know I sound crazy, but please, I need you to believe me. Wordlessly, she reaches for the pipe again.
You're lucky you're cute.
She says.
When's Teddy's father coming?
Tomorrow evening. The words burn on my tongue. I know I can't last that long, but I know it's my only hope. I just want you to stay with me until tomorrow evening, and then maybe this will all end.
You're lucky you're cute.
She repeats, less enthused than before. Her delicate fingers brush against my arm. On any other occasion, I would welcome them, but as she caresses me, I shudder and pull away. Even though her fingers are long and sleek, they still remind me of Professor Egghead's stubby limbs.
So, how are you going to stay awake?
Coffee and energy drinks, I say. The sink in the bathroom is also filled up with ice water in case of an emergency.
How about some physical exercise?
She asks, pulling me closer. Petra, we shouldn't, I reply.
Oh, come on! You make me come all the way across the city just so you can tell me some man made of eggs is going to capture you if you fall asleep. What am I getting out of this?
Do you not believe me?
What do you think?
I can show you the tape. It's still in Teddy's VCR. If you just...
I don't want to see the tape. I came here to see you. If you want me to stay here until Teddy's father arrives, I can. Maybe I'll even tell you a nice bedtime story when everything is over. Just let me wake you up a bit.
His grubby little hands. That's all I can think about as she touches me. Her piercing eyes are filled with sex, but they are irrelevant. I know that somewhere out there, attached to a pale and misshapen body, there are two bloodshot eyeballs covered in grimy crust, watching me, waiting for me to slip. Yet I know that I cannot face the egg-shaped abomination alone. I know I need her. Promise you'll stay, I ask.
Scout's honor.
Petra replies as she pulls me towards her. She kisses me. I lack the strength to resist. We're in bed alone, but the act might as well be a threesome. Under my hands, her skin feels like rough eggshell. Beneath each moan she lets out, I hear his frantic shouts about science. There are moments when I forget Petra's even in the room. All I know is that his sleepless eyes are watching me. I try to resist, but I can't. The blinding glare of fluorescent light bulbs drown out her naked body. I hear the sounds of checkout machines. There's a meek-looking, balding man standing by my register. His shopping cart contains a fancy-looking bottle of red wine, a box of Swiss chocolates, a 12-pack of Durex Extra Safe condoms, and a child-sized package of Haribo gummy bears. He refuses to look in my eyes. No. No, no. I whisper, desperately hoping to be elsewhere. Wake up. Wake up, God damn it. Behind me, a sad-looking woman scans a can of beans. She wears the same dark blue supermarket uniform as me. She doesn't scan any new items. She just keeps scanning the same can over and over. The sad elderly man on the other side of the checkout counter doesn't seem to mind. He knows there isn't much time left. Somewhere from beyond the dog food aisle, I hear the faint beginning of applause. He's coming. Professor Egghead is coming. Escape. My mind immediately turns to the thought of escape. Of getting away from the walking fever dream that is on an unavoidable path towards my checkout register. Yet as I look past my workstation to where the exit from the supermarket would conceivably be, all I see is the faint dim of television static. The world I stand in is not my own. The world I stand in is his, and he draws the boundaries. The applause grows in volume. The invisible audience is excited to see their favorite character. How do I get out of here? I ask the balding man. He doesn't acknowledge me. Instead, he stares into the television static beyond, waiting for the inevitable. With shaking hands, I grab his shirt. Please, there has to be a way out. His eyes stay glued to the confounding universe of madness in front of him. But his lips part slightly.
Don't fight it.
He whispers.
He makes it worse if you fight it.
Someone has to know. I yell at the procession of carts behind the man. The applause grows wild. A shopping cart squeaks towards the back of the line. The moment of reckoning is at hand. Please, someone, help me get away from him.
I am Professor Egghead,
He screams from behind the line of terrified shoppers.
I have arrived to exchange monetary tokens for goods. I must stalk my domicile quickly so that I can commit the rest of my time on this planet to science.
I do not see his misshapen body past the other shoppers, but I see his cart. It's filled up with dog food and toilet paper.
I have arrived to trade goods. I have taken a break from my work in the field of science to prolong my survival in this modern society.
He raves, ramming his cart into the middle-aged couple in front of him.
But I have no time for waiting. I must make my purchase now so I can work on my inventions.
The studio applause explodes into laughter as a man is visibly injured by Professor Egghead's overfilled cart. Yet as the monstrosity advances in the queue, the laughter stops. The shoppers are no longer staring into the wall of static. They're looking at me. I'm meant to say something. Please. I plead with them. Help me. I don't belong here. Please, I
have come here expecting speedy service. I have come here expecting the respect and adoration that Professor Egghead deserves. But instead, I am stuck behind the masses, Instead, I am treated like a rabid dog awaited his execution.
The professor's insane ramblings get a couple of chuckles out of the studio audience. But the silence soon returns. Everyone is staring at me.
Tell him he has to wait his turn.
The balding man mumbles with fear in his voice.
Tell him he has to wait his turn, and this will all end much quicker.
Terrified, with no other direction in life, I follow the balding man's instructions. You have to wait your turn, Professor Egghead, I say.
What?
The cruel voice rages from the back of the line.
I will do no such thing. I am a man of science, not a man of waiting.
The audience explodes into another burst of applause as the abhorrent creature waddles out from behind his shopping cart. His deformed egg-shaped body is barely covered by his greasy lab coat. Filthy strands of jet black hair jut out of his pointed scalp like the claws of a demon. He is a nightmare personified. With spine-chilling speed, his stout hands grab the dress of the woman in front of him. In one swift motion, he sends her clattering to the ground. A loud crack escapes from her body as it meets the floor. The studio audience applauds and laughs and cheers at the violence. Energized by invisible spectators, Professor Egghead moves to the next shopper and drives them to the ground as well. In a series of brutal assaults, Professor Egghead attacks each and every person in his way. None of them get back up.
Just follow the script.
The balding man says.
Follow the script and don't make him angry. If he gets angry, he'll...
The man's sentence is finished by a crack as his skull meets the floor. Red and tired and diseased, Professor Egghead's drooping eyes stare into my soul. For a moment, he just looks at me, his sharp-toothed mouth smiling at the discomfort he is brewing in my soul. But then, with a burst of pep in his step, he travels to the back of the line. As he moves past the unmoving bodies of the innocent shoppers, he overturns their carts to clear the way for his own groceries. The corpses don't bother him. As he moves back towards me, he lets his shopping cart crush everything beneath his path. A trail of mangled bodies and blood lies in his wake. Spit festers in the corners of his angry mouth.
With my powerful brain, I have already calculated the monetary worth of my purchase.
Professor Egghead screams.
There is no need for you to waste my time with your maddening barcodes.
He reaches into the pocket of his lab coat and produces 3 lumpy pieces of stone. Not being able to reach my register, the egg-shaped man is forced into labored hops. After 3 unsuccessful attempts to put the stones on the counter, he finally succeeds. The invisible audience finds this deserving of thunderous applause.
These are precious minerals that I have collected from beneath the ground. I trust that you will find them of equal value to the goods that I have purchased.
He yells up at me. I keep my eyes locked to the dark stone, hoping that Professor Egghead will leave, hoping that I will wake up back in my room next to Petra. But he doesn't leave. He keeps on staring at me, waiting.
Tell him you only accept cash or credit.
A human's voice pleads from behind the counter. The balding man's head is trapped beneath one of the wheels of the overfilled cart. Blood drips from his mouth, yet his pained eyes still manage to meet mine.
Please, just tell him what he wants to hear.
No, I yell. No, this is all wrong. I don't want to be here. The tape wasn't mine. I wasn't meant to watch it. I want to go back. A moment of silence drags into a tense eternity. But eventually someone in the invisible audience boos. They are joined with a legion of hisses and jeers. As if the angry crowd was a source of some unspeakable power, Professor Egghead jumps. In one instantaneous show of agility, the grotesque scientist leaps on top of the checkout counter.
I am Professor Egghead, master of the mind, dominator of the sciences.
He bellows.
You will submit.
With the strength of a sucker punch, the professor rockets himself into my abdomen. In an instant, I am knocked to the ground, struggling to breathe. I try to bat the heavy egg creature away, but his plump fingers seize my arm.
I am Professor Egghead.
He screams as his powerful hands start to crush my arm.
I demand your obedience.
The pain is unbearable. The pain is incomprehensible. The pain causes all my pleas for freedom to turn into throat-burning screams. I feel my bones starting to shatter beneath his grasp.
I demand it! I demand it! I demand!
A thud and a crack. A blunt force sends a bolt of pain through my face. Blood starts to pour out of my nose. I try to lift myself up, but my right arm refuses to move. I bleed on the floor. I bleed on the floor of my bedroom.
Bad dream?
Petra asks, leaning over the side of my bed. Reality comes crashing down on me harder than the heavy egg that just attacked me. I am beyond happy that I have escaped the fat-fingered clutches of the professor. I am overjoyed to be safe and alive in a world that I can make sense of. But the joy is overtaken by anger. My eyes burn with sleep deprivation and rage as I look up at the naked woman leaning over my bed. You let me fall asleep.
Or you passed out and before you threw yourself off the bed, you looked pretty peaceful. I thought maybe you just needed some rest. You were acting crazy.
You bitch.
Excuse me?
You let me fall asleep. I told you about him. I told you that he would get me if I fell asleep. You were meant to help me stay awake.
What did you call me?
Look what he did to me. The part of my arm that Professor Egghead gripped burns with pain, but the skin is only slightly reddened. I clamber up to my feet to get closer to her, to show her what the Eggman did to me, to show her what she could have stopped, but I don't get that far. As soon as I'm standing, a new wave of exhaustion washes through me with dizzying force. Blood drips from my nose. With every drop, I feel weaker. I summon all of my strength and dash to the bathroom. The ice bath in my sink shocks me awake. I stare at the clogged up drain. The frigid water feels like chlorine against my eyes. Everything hurts and everything is chaos. I know I can't resist the pull of sleep forever. I know I'm doomed. Yet as my bleeding nose turns the white of the porcelain pink, a memory emerges. A memory that provides a solution. For a split second, I'm not in some dingy bathroom in Prague. I'm back outside Boston. It's 2012, and I'm sitting at home watching AMC with my dad. The television gives us an interesting bit of information about Czech Republic.
I'm leaving.
I barely hear her past the water. What? I thought you were gonna stay. Petra, I need your help,
I'm leaving.
she says, standing in the hallway. She already has her underwear on. A t-shirt dangles from her hand, and a cold anger lingers in her eyes. Is it because I called you a bitch? Her face responds adequately. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. Look, I'm just really stressed. I know the whole Professor Egghead thing sounds crazy, but I'm sorry for calling you a bitch. I won't do that again. The t-shirt continues dangling from her hand. She doesn't put it on. I'm sorry that I dragged you into this, Petra. I really am. I should have told you before I invited you over. No one wants to spend their Saturday with a crazy guy talking about men made of eggs. I promise I'll make this up to you. I just need your help on one thing. She probed me with her eyes, not letting a single hint of emotion show on her face.
How will you make this up to me?
She finally asks. However you want. What do you want me to do, Petra?
Depends. What do you need help with?
I need to find some meth.
Meth?
Meth. Yes, meth. Back home, we had this show called Breaking Bad, where a science teacher starts cooking up really strong methamphetamines. Him and his friends start exporting drugs to the Czech Republic because you guys are the biggest consumers of the stuff in the world. Petra doesn't answer. She just pulls on a t-shirt and stomps off to my bedroom. I follow her, pleading, leaving a trail of bloodied water on the linoleum. Oh, come on, you have to know someone, right? There has to be some truth to this show, right? Wordlessly, she pulls on a single sock. But as she reaches for the second one, her scowl breaks into angry words.
You've lived here for what? A year. You've lived here for a year and you still base your understanding of my culture on some bullshit Hollywood show.
I sit down on the bed next to her. The gentle fluff of the covers makes me feel like I'm sitting on a cloud. Sleep calls to me from the mattress. Petra, please.
And not that it's a matter of national pride, but we are not just the biggest consumer of methamphetamines, we are also the biggest producers and exporters of the stuff. To imply that it would make sense to export drugs across the Atlantic is just more bullshit American exceptionalism.
With a single sock on her foot, she yells at me. At moments, I am unsure if she's yelling at me because of who I am as a person or if she's yelling at me because I'm an American. It doesn't make a difference. When she finishes her rant, Petra throws on the rest of her clothes and marches out my door. I'm left alone, sleep-deprived and methless. The red bruise on my arm turns black. After another quadruple shot of espresso, I pick up my phone and call anyone and everyone in my contact list who could possibly have access to drugs. I am met with laughter and confusion every time. When I push for information, I am met with a dial tone. In between the frantic phone calls, I shove my head in the cold water in the sink with hopes of prolonging my consciousness. As the rejections mount, the ice starts to melt. By the time I have no one left to call, all I'm left with is a sink full of pink lukewarm water. For a moment, I consider restocking the ice, but the creeping darkness outside whispers promises of rest. I know that I can't last another 24 hours in my apartment without going to sleep. Pulling on my coat, I walk out into the cold November night. The crisp fall air steadies me somewhat as I leave my house. But the flash of alertness doesn't last long. Soon enough, I'm aimlessly walking through the city of Prague, unsure of how I will resist the pull of the nightmarish egg creature that haunts me. Even though the architecture of the city is of rough Gothic stone, I can't help but to find it soft. The world is soft. Every bench, every tram stop, every medieval divot in the ancient structures calls to me and invites me to lie down and rest. I stagger across the cobblestone, trying to remind myself of what will happen if I dare to dream. I find myself standing on the brightly lit Wenceslas Square. A statue of the Czech patron saint towers at the end of the boulevard, promising protection from all the forces that would dare harm the country. Grand structures of Parisian architecture spread out in front of him, promising a culture that will never be forgotten.
Hey boss, looking for girls?
Next to me stands a strip club promoter wearing an oversized top hat and a glimmering coat of fake gold.
Hottest girls in all of Prague. Free entry.
he says, smiling a salesman's grin. No thank you, I reply, remembering my previous attempt to distract myself from the demented reality of Professor Egghead with the female form.
Ah, American. You are here to party, yes? I can show you the wildest bars. Best beer, best girls, best fun.
I live here, I reply. This completely changes his demeanor.
Fuck off then.
He says, realizing he can't sell me on any of the tourist traps.
Go back home to your cheeseburgers.
Not wanting to break my nose a second time, I start to walk away. But then I stop. I look at the man. He no longer looks like the product of an affair between a magician and a carpet. For a moment, in the flickering of the electric lamplight, he looks like my only hope. Hey, I say, do you know where I can find some meth?